Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
And very glad to have on with us this morning Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. Brooks Baker, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
District Attorney Baker, obviously the first question to ask you about is the Alan Schulteis homicide case. Not sure if you're able to publicly answer this question at this point or not. The question that I hear the most from people who bring this up to me is the why. Is there anything at this point you can discuss in terms of motive, in terms of the Jay Sprague death there at the ARC house in Hornell some weeks ago?
Brian, one thing I'm kind of reluctant to talk about evidence very much in this case because of how early in the process we are and the constraints I have ethically. But I will tell you one of the things as a prosecutor I don't have to prove is the why, the motive piece, and that's a frustration for so many victims and oftentimes for law enforcement is we may never know exactly why. We can tell you what happened and what level of intent was required, and we can tell that from the actions and from the evidence, but exactly why someone undergoes makes that choice to kill someone else, I'm not sure we're ever going to have a why. One, I really shouldn't speak to it, and two, in real terms, I can't. I don't have the capacity to climb inside Mr. Schulteis' mind and tell you why he did what he did. Hopefully, through this process, we can at least let the family and the friends of the victim know what happened, and we can draw some conclusions from that.
And Schulteis is charged with second-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence. Before I move on to any other topics, did you want to say anything else there on this subject, Brooks Baker?
Well, the only thing I would comment on there is that I think the people of Hornell should be proud of how the Hornell Police Department handled this case. I mean, they went from a 911 call with sort of very amorphous and absence of detail. Two officers responded to the scene. They made some really heads-up law enforcement choices to move this investigation forward and preserve critical evidence. And we went from that 911 call to an arrest of a murder suspect, taking a dangerous person off the street in less than 6 hours. That's phenomenal police work. They called in and got cooperation from the state police and really did a great job in this case. So I think it's another situation where the folks at Hornell should look to the police department and say thank you for doing the right thing and being good at your jobs.
Hornell Police also being praised for being very helpful in getting people out of their houses during this Sunday's fires on Preston Avenue and also on Washington Street. Mayor Buckley and Police Chief Murray and the Fire Chief Frank Brzezowski have all talked about how the Hornell Police went in and in some cases had to knock down the doors in order to get people out of those house fires.
And that's, again, that's just a testament to what they do and the fine quality folks that you have protecting and serving in the city of Hornell. I mean, the stuff that we all run away from, they run too. And it's and that example of bravery, we're seeing on national news how firemen died doing just the same thing earlier this week in New Jersey and Massachusetts. And, to see our Hornell Police Department doing that for its citizens is just, again, it's amazing what they do every day. A paycheck certainly doesn't cover. The level of bravery they show is phenomenal. And, obviously the investigation into what happened there, how it happened, and why it happened is ongoing. And they're handling that in a very professional manner as well.
Talking to Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker, and the upcoming criminal justice changes that will go into effect in January. You've spoken about this. The sheriff, numerous law enforcement agencies have spoke out about this. And I understand there's some press conferences going on statewide about this today.
Yeah, this reform, as it's being called, is one of the most sweeping and dramatic changes in how criminal justice will be administered ever to happen in New York State. I've been doing this 25 years. I've never seen anything like this. And we can talk about some of the specifics, but the cost that's being passed on directly to county taxpayers across the state is phenomenal. It's one of the biggest unfunded mandates in criminal justice ever. The reduction in safety for the public, for witnesses, for victims, flipping sort of the focus from the victim to the defendant in every case, as far as who needs to be protected most, is absolutely stunning. And every law enforcement agency across the state, the Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs Association, district attorneys, are all absolutely shocked by this. It's going to tie our hands in many cases. It's going to do a disservice to our victims and to our witnesses. And in response to that, I believe in at least 6, probably maybe as many as 10 locations across the state, simultaneous press conferences are being held by district attorneys and sheriffs and police chiefs, all of us expressing our concern for what this is going to do to public safety and to our taxpayers.
I think there's a lot of, I don't think I know, there's a lot of online lists that have been posted by law enforcement locally, and you see this on Facebook and other pages, about the list of crimes that suspects will be able to be released after being accused of. The big fear, of course, is that a lot of these suspects on these heavier charges are going to be skipping town. Have you talked at all with law enforcement about any way to counter that inevitable problem, Brooks Baker?
Well, unfortunately, no. I mean, the state has very effectively tied our hands in dealing with trying to get people to come back to court. It is to the point of almost being a joke as far as what we're doing in keeping people, holding them accountable, bringing them back to answer for court. In almost every case, with the exception of our most violent felonies, we are required to issue an appearance ticket, which is a piece of paper that says, please come to court. The statute has become so ridiculous that that's not even enough. Our local courts, our towns and villages there in Hornellsville and Avoca and Arkport, in the city of Hornell, are now going to have to reach out to defendants 2 days before their appearance and send them a text message reminder or an email at the address of the defendant's choosing saying, please show up. When they do show up, if we are allowed to consider any kind of restriction, the court is directed to go to least restrictive means by statute. Least restrictive means being tell them to show back up. And when they don't show back up, we can't even issue a warrant. We have to reach out to them again and say, hey, you forgot to come to court. If you don't show up the next couple of days, we'll issue a warrant. I have never seen anything like this. No state in the union has gone this far in the idea of basically it's sort of become catch and release law enforcement. And it's spooky because these folks will go directly back on the street. There is no consideration for public safety or recidivism in this statute. The judges cannot consider that in any way, shape, or form. There is no consideration for ties to the community. We used to be able to say, look, this person is from New Jersey and they committed a violent offense here in Steuben County. They have no ties to our community. They're looking at going to prison for a long time. Judge, we need to set bail on something, and the judge should consider that. We can't consider those things anymore. That's not ties to the community are off the table. The strength of people's case we can't consider. Violence, recidivism, none of those things can be considered. And there is no consideration for public safety in this reform on the bail side whatsoever.
Yeah, I was looking at a NPR page on this, which tends to lean left. And they say that things worked out. They quoted someone from the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, is saying that the getting rid of the cash bail system worked out perfectly in the state of New Jersey, and there were no failures to appear in court. That's hard to believe.
Well, that's a fallacy. In fact, in New Jersey, they passed a collection of laws that looked a lot like New York's laws, and then all of a sudden everybody took a deep breath and said, this is nuts. We can't do that. And they actually pulled back and amended their law to allow judges to consider things like violence, public safety, recidivism. So, yes, they did eliminate cash bail, but they allowed a judge the discretion to set bail when there was a significant public safety issue. Our judges do not have that discretion in New York State. We don't care if the public, I care. Our law enforcement cares, our sheriff cares. Unfortunately, Governor Cuomo and the majority that passed this stuff in Albany, and I know our local representatives fought hard against it, they don't care about public safety. They're pandering to, I'm not sure exactly what lobby, but it's absolutely scary because there's no consideration for public safety here. And to use New Jersey as an example, they're right. They tried it failed, and they backed away from this catch and release law enforcement thing that now Albany wants us to use in New York State, and said, you know what, yes, we can make the system more fair. And there are ways we could have made our system more fair, although I think here in Steuben County it functioned very fairly. But they said, you know what, that's not safe. It's not going to work. It's putting our public at risk, and we need to make some changes. And we need to give the judges discretion to deal with people who are going to run or are going to hurt people. And our judges do not have that discretion in New York State. That was taken away by Albany.
One change that's already gone into effect, and I don't think that has anything to do with the 2020 criminal justice changes, is the idea of, is it booking or arraignments for everybody over at the county courthouse in Bath, and how's that going?
Well, it's a new animal. There was an ACLU-driven lawsuit that Steuben County wasn't part of, and that as part of that lawsuit, a mandate came down from the Office of Court Administration that we have counsel at every single arraignment for every individual. And so to make that work, because we deal with 52 local courts here in Steuben County, and the idea that we could be out and get each one of those courts with a public defender and a DA to do an arraignment whenever they happen was simply untenable and far too expensive to even begin to contemplate. So we put together a cooperative plan to minimize the impact on the taxpayer and still observe the rights of the defendant, where we do all of our arraignments at Steuben County Jail. The jail is a holding facility. When someone's arrested, they're transported to Steuben County Jail by whoever arrests them, and then they're held until the arraignment happens. And we do arraignments twice a day, so nobody ever sits more than 12 hours. In theory, it's working. I mean, it's working. Everybody's getting arraigned, but because of some of the conflicts that are involved and the limited jurisdiction of the judges, it's sort of technical stuff, but really nothing can happen there. The defense attorneys can't determine whether or not they actually have a conflict and can represent these folks, so they can only talk about the issues of bail. They can't even really talk intelligently with their clients about that because they may not represent them and they don't want to create a conflict of interest or some kind of other issue with the case. A defendant, when they walk into court in any given case, has a constitutional right to plead guilty, and many folks want to. And these judges in cap court don't have jurisdiction to hear a guilty plea or sentence. So all we're doing is appearing in court and sending these folks back out to their respective local courts to deal with this stuff in 2 or 3 weeks. In real terms, it's actually causing some people to spend more time in jail. It's costing the county an awful lot of money, and I don't think we're really protecting anybody's rights any more than we ever did. The criminal procedure law was built for upstate New York and allowed us to do arraignments and adjourn things for short periods of time so that those issues be resolved in front of a judge with a lawyer present. Created a mechanism whereby if somebody went to jail on a Saturday night, on Monday morning they could be back in county court in front of a county court judge if they couldn't get in front of their town or village fast enough. And that was pretty scrupulously observed here in Steuben County. People were not languishing in jail, which is the reason why all of this stuff happened. So I don't know that we have accomplished any more than we were ever accomplishing, but we are spending a fair amount of taxpayer money because we've been told we have to.
In terms of bringing the suspects over to the county court, does each town, village, and city do that themselves, or does the county come over and pick people up, or is it both? How's that work?
The New York State Police deliver them themselves. The sheriff has worked with, because that was going to be a huge cost for our cities, particularly in the city of Hornell, where we have a limited number of officers on staff, and a lot of those transports require 2 people for officer safety. There would be times when the city was essentially unprotected if we had to do this, and that was a real concern raised by Chief Murray and by Mayor Buckley, and heard by our county legislature. And so the sheriff worked out a program where when arrests are made in our larger jurisdictions, he will come pick them up. And that cost is being shared by the city and the county. But we're making sure that we always have police coverage in our cities. So it was a difficult logistical problem to overcome. And I think, again, it's just demonstrative of the willingness of our local law enforcement to cooperate to keep people safe and do what we have to do. But it's a mandate that we had to comply with. And so now the sheriff is doing that for most of the large jurisdictions in the county.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about the meth and fentanyl issues and other drug issues in Steuben County, talking with Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker this morning. Stay with us.
Join Sharon at BK's Boutique and Florist of Canisteo for her Christmas open house, Thursday, November 21st through Saturday, November 23rd. There's 25% off home decor. Why not start your Christmas shopping early? And while you're there, be sure to sign up for their door prize and enjoy some refreshments. Here are the hours: 9 to 5 Thursday and Friday, and Saturday from 9 till noon. BK's Boutique and Florist, 26 Greenwood Street, Canisteo. Phone 607-698-4416.
Checking in now with the meteorologist Rob Carroll. Rob, it's cold out there again.
It is. It's another cold one, Brian, and another fairly cloudy one across much of the state. Once you get to about just south of Albany, the sun comes out. But, boy, it looks like from Binghamton to Rome all the way up to Saranac Lake and westward, we're going to be cloudy out into Michigan. We're being affected by a storm system which is working its way through Wisconsin this morning. That storm not only is going to bring us some cloudiness, but eventually may bring us some late-day showers and some wind. It looks like it turns a little breezy later tonight into tomorrow. We actually clear things out for Saturday, get some sunshine going. Now the storm system passing south of the region may bring us clouds and a couple of showers on Sunday. Sunrise this morning was at 7:09. The sun will set tonight at 4:43. Cloudy day with the chance of late day shower. Temperatures between 45 and 50. Tonight a few showers are possible. It'll be breezy, milder overnight, lows near 40. Tomorrow more clouds than sunshine, breezy. Any showers end in the morning. Highs will be close to 45 tomorrow.
Thanks, Rob. Getting back now to Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. Meth and fentanyl, those are the big drugs hearing a lot about these days in the Canisteo Valley area and this side of the county. District Attorney Brooks Baker, is that pretty county-wide, do you think?
Yeah, I think the Steuben County drug problem is a Steuben County drug problem. It's not unique to any community. One drug may be a little hotter because there are more dealers in one particular area than another, but across the county we are certainly seeing significant fentanyl and now crystal methamphetamine is sort of rearing its ugly head in our community. Dealing with drugs here is always sort of a good news, bad news situation. I think the good news is through federal crackdowns and law enforcement efforts, we are seeing less heroin in the area. Bad news is we are seeing more fentanyl being sold as heroin, and as we all know, I hope by now, fentanyl is an incredibly dangerous synthetic substance, and that causes fatal overdoses. So, unfortunately, we are still seeing fatal overdoses on fentanyl. Killing innocent people in Steuben County. That continues to happen. The rate is going down, and that is certainly of something we are pleased about here in Steuben County. But as those drugs become more difficult to get, we still have people who are addicted to those substances who need to feed those addictions and deal with their illness. And so now crystal methamphetamine is appearing. It's being shipped in from other areas. It's not our homegrown meth, which we are used to, and which carries the dangers of production, but it is expensive. It's very potent. We're actually seeing some methamphetamine overdoses, which is kind of a new animal here in our county. And again, it's another cheap, very potent high, which is addicting people rapidly, taking the place of other addictive drugs, and creates the same collateral issues we have of domestic violence and property crime and property damage and assaults and all those things that go with the trafficking in and use of illegal drugs.
We often hear that fentanyl is the kind of drug that people get into because of some medical situation. They were using it temporarily for pain, and then they sometimes get into heroin with fentanyl in it because it gives them a similar high sensation. Do you know, District Attorney Brooks Baker, what is getting people into meth, amphetamines? What would be the gateway drug or the reason that people are getting into methamphetamines? Any thoughts there?
Well, I think there's a lot of studies into addiction, and I don't purport to be an expert, but I have been a witness for a long time. And I think there are obviously gateway drugs are gateway drugs, and they are a function. And the gateway opens wider when there is an absence of economic opportunity and people don't have a whole lot going on in their lives other than the opportunity to use drugs. So, for gateway drugs, almost every user I have ever dealt with, and I know some people take issue with this, but I've talked to many addicts to heroin and methamphetamine. They all start with some illegal drug, and usually it's marijuana. Or pills, which used to be so common, and that moves them into the world. They step across that line, and other substances come into play. As far as methamphetamine right now, I think there are people who are starved for heroin and opiates, and as some of that market dries up because enforcement has become so strict in those areas that they are searching for anything else. And this crystal methamphetamine is such a potent substance that it carries a high that hits some of the same receptors that opiates do within the brain and satisfies that addiction. So I think that's kind of where we are. I won't say methamphetamine is replacing heroin, but I think it is something where people who are addicted to opiates are starved for drugs, and now we have something else which can step into that place.
Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker. With that, we have to leave it. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us today.
Brian, thank you very, very much for having me, and have a great day.